All right, we are live. What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rangers Talk. I am not here with my usual co-host C-Jets, who will be joining us later, but I'm not here. Nico is on vacation; he's always slacking. But I'm here with two great YouTubers, great minds, and Big Apple Hockey. This has been something that I've been trying to put together for a while. We thought this was going to be weeks, but we got it going. So I'm here with Mark. I'm here with Phil. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great today, Cord. It's good to be finally on here, and it's also good to not have any burdens of hosting right now. Uh, great, great to see what you're going to have in store.
Yeah, we still got your layup talk lined up for later on in the episode. I figured we'd add that into this, but
Can we still get a Mark messed up gift somehow?
oh, don't worry, we
Oh, it's
have
still
it,
on there.
and I might have to.
Yes!
I might have to flash the Mark messed up gift during layup talk because I didn't copy and paste it, but I corrected his spelling of Alexander Georgiev. So we could flash the gif up, and I have control of it this time.
Oh, some things never change.
So I'll have a field day with that one. But Michael, what's going on? James, what's going on? Chat is going, but I think that we're just gonna jump into talking about the Rangers. We'll just talk about the offseason, how they have, and how we're feeling going into next season. I know you guys spoke at nauseum about the offseason, so have I, but we'll just dive into it because there's not really much else to talk about. But there still is some things we could talk about. There's reports about the Rangers' fragile leadership leaking. There's still Kane and Tarasenko on the market, which we could talk about. So how are you guys feeling with the shape of the Rangers roster currently?
Phil,
You
go
want
right
me to
ahead.
take this first? Okay.
Oh.
As currently structured, I like it. I'm not sure if I love it, but they're definitely. I feel like I want one more right wing. Like if you told me that Vladimir Tarasenko was coming back on cheap, I'd feel really, really, really good about this roster. Um, I still think they lack a little bit on the right wing, even though I do like the Wheeler signing a lot because I think he's probably going to exceed expectations. I think he's a guy that could end up being a 50 to 60 point player, maybe even more for all we know, depending on the usage. But he's also a kind of guy that could slide down and play third line right wing if they want to go that route and give them depth in the event they brought in someone like Kane or Tarasenko for that other top six right wing spot. Uh, Otherwise, I like Pitlick. Um, I think Belzile is a sneaky good signing because I think he could come up and give you points on the fourth line. I like Gustafson at less than $1 million because he got 40 points last year. The only problem with him is what's the usage going to be? Is he power play two? I mean, that's really the question. I still think he could get you 30 points. You can get 30 points for a third pairing defenseman who's not really getting first unit power play time. It's good. So I do like the roster, although I'm not in love with it. And I think that come the deadline, I think they're probably going to have the flexibility to make a move that could help bolster them quite a bit. So that's a good thing. But it depends on Lafreniere. How much cap space did they have after Lafreniere? Are we trying to do 15-man rosters again to try to get somebody in at the deadline because Chris Drury decided to, big brain things and overcomplicate them by not putting someone on LTIR? Hello, Jacob Trouba. Hello, Ryan Lindgren. But I mean, it just, I don't know. I feel like it's good. I feel like they'll make the playoffs. But I can't say that I'm completely in love with the roster.
I'm okay with the offseason so far because I said they needed to work on their bottom six to give more time for Kako and Lafreniere to be playing. I've been beating this drum for a long time, and we have a co-host that's not here who is going to be very excited if he's proven right. I've been saying all along that Kako and Lafreniere have been collecting dust. You got to turn the keys over to them, and you got to see what they can do. And the thing is, the Rangers, I was worried Blake Wheeler coming in, they would give him a 3 or 4 year deal. It's not, it's a 1 year deal. And the rest of it, Drury just signed depth pieces. I love those moves. Is it sexy? Of course not. And the other thing about it is, I'm going to have to say the real acquisition was getting rid of Gerard Gallant, because thank you very much for your regular season, but it was obvious in games 3 and 4 and 5. Oh my goodness, game 5. I go back to game 5 repeatedly, and I say this to every single Ranger fan that can listen. Oh, the players, they got to do this. The players, they got to do that. No, when you're getting outshot 20-2 and you're trailing 3-0 in the third period of a series, you led 2-0 and are about to fall down to 3-2 for a deficit. That says your team is quitting. And look, they showed up in game 6. Good for the Rangers in that game. But Peter Laviolette, haven't messed it up yet, everybody. Yeah, not yet. But he's not. He's a much more structured coach. He does have a shelf life, a little bit better than Gerard Gallant's. There's more structure. And I'm already working on a blog article for us of players that really had their best seasons under him. And there's a lot of them. And one guy that fits that template could be Alexei Lafreniere, because Victor Arvidsson had a great season under him. Eric Cole has one of his best seasons under him, if not for a miracle 30-goal season in Montreal. But then it was, and even looking at the centers, Eric Stahl's only 100-point season came under Peter Laviolette. Claude Giroux, his best season was under him too. So I'm interested to see a lot of the entrenched guys, but also the guys that he's got to develop. Because, I mean, I can even point to Sean Bates. He got Sean Bates, 17-goal season of 40-plus points. He's never approached that again.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you with Gerard Gallant being out. I think the Rangers are really relying on a coaching change being the answer to this, because I really have questions because we know that there was that altercation with Drury and Gallant after game 4. I question if Gallant at that point just accepted that he was fired and he just gave up completely on coaching the rest of that series, which, not that he did a good job to begin with, but it really felt like after game 4, there was zero life in game 5, zero life in game 7. And I'm still trying to figure out why he completely contradicted himself. He said in game 5, after game 5, he said they played a solid game and they played better than they did in game 4. And then after game 7, he talked about how they weren't talented enough, and that, or it's great to have all the talent, but you got to be able to commit to the grind and commit to the battle. But it was pretty much the same game. It was pretty much copy paste game 5 and game 7. So I don't know what he's talking about with that. But this is the last coach. I've been saying it for a while for this core. If Laviolette's not the answer, I don't know what is for this core. And either way, I'm scared with the way that the leadership is. They had to bring in a bunch of veterans. I forgot who it was that wrote that article that I saw Phil quote tweet, and I also quote tweeted as well. This team is just a disaster when it comes to that. You don't name 6 alternate captains if you don't have leadership problems. It's just the truth.
And I think some of it, I've said this on our show a lot, some of it has to do with courtesy. I think some of it has to do with the fact that Kreider didn't want to take it away from Zibanejad. Zibanejad didn't want to take it away from Kreider. Panarin doesn't want it at all. And then it leaves you Jacob Trouba. But let me give you this encouraging, sentiment. Who was the captain in Winnipeg? Blake Wheeler.
Yep.
And I believe he's the captain going all the way back to Andrew Ladd, if I'm correct, Phil.
Yeah, Andrew Ladd was the captain before he was. The thing, I like the fact that they brought in Wheeler. I like the fact that he has a good relationship with Trouba. It doesn't change the fact that I think Trouba is just a terrible captain. I don't think he's cut out for it. Some guys are, some guys aren't. It's like when Kenny Janssen was the captain of the Islanders. His play just dropped off significantly. Brian Leetch with the Rangers, another one. It should have went to Wayne Gretzky instead of Brian Leetch. I think Brian Leetch would have played a hell of a lot better without the burden of that C on his jersey. Some guys just aren't meant to do it. And I don't think Jacob Trouba is that. If you wanted Jacob Trouba to be an A, or even if he just wanted to not have a letter and just be a vocal presence in the locker room, okay, fine. But being a captain is not just a vocal presence in the locker room. Was Jeff Odgers a good captain when he was captain of Atlanta? No. That doesn't, just because you're a vocal leader doesn't mean you're a good captain. Or just because you're a do it by example guy on the ice, does that mean you're a great captain? Adam Graves wasn't captain material. He was an A, but he wasn't captain material. I mean, he was never going to get the chance with the other guys, that were there in New York. But some guys are meant to be leaders in different capacities in different ways in this team. And I've been saying this for 2-3 years now, Mark, easy, that they
basically since the dawn of our show,
that they should have never hired a captain. They should have waited. You should have waited on either Fox or maybe even Lafreniere to be that guy, even though I'm not looking great saying Lafreniere right now, because I thought when I said that originally, he would have matured. This season remains to be seen, but this is not a good leadership group. And their showings in the playoffs in certain series has just been soft. The collapse against Tampa after going up 2-0, the series against the Devils, absolutely turtling against Carolina in 2020 in the bubble. I mean, what does that tell you about this group? It tells you that it's not a good one in terms of that. So certain guys have to either step up, young guys looking towards Kako and Lafreniere, obviously, or you know what, maybe this whole group needs to be overhauled. So I mean, I do kind of agree. Oh, I can't highlight comments. That's right.
Which comment did you want me to bring up?
The Jay Lewis one that he just put up, who is actually another one of our viewers. I see quite a few viewers in here.
It's good. Us. Let's integrate. Get it.
Yeah. I mean, Jay, Dave, my right nut. Who else do I see in here?
But Core, hey, that's okay, because everybody predicted Elias Anderson was going to be a captain.
Michael Mass, I think I've seen with us before.
Because he threw away a silver medal. That made him captain material.
I don't know if I don't know if Brennan Hoffman will be the next captain. That's another comment I see, but I tell you right now, I do like Hoffman's game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it with Lafreniere. Like, I could see him becoming a good enough player, but I question how much he's committed to the game. I have for a bit now, and the fact that the only off-season clips we've seen from him this year is him saucing up 10-year-olds at a local rink is just... It's just, I don't understand what he's doing, and I don't know if he's taking his offseason serious enough. And I just question how much he's committed to the game. And with Trouba being captain, I think it was Elliot Friedman or Jeff Merrick. One of them brought up on I think it was 32 Thoughts or the Jeff Merrick show, how Trouba being named captain was a Gallant-driven thing to begin with. So does that surprise anyone? Because he was the only one really gassing up Trouba during that press conference.
And it's funny because Trouba was the one who basically came out and put that nothing burger of a comment about Gallant.
That's what I was about to say too.
His end. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I gotta say, when you take away the longest tenured player out of the mix in Chris Kreider, and I know Kreider the Friendly Ghost, as Phil has called him many a times, but the one thing that you don't really question him in a way is the leadership abilities, but his leadership ability is more about like getting the teammates together, working out, knowing various different languages, and getting the Russian players on board, because he speaks Russian, he speaks obviously English, but you know, you take him out of the mix, you take Mika Zibanejad out of the mix, and Panarin doesn't want any of it, you're left with nobody. And I had the rant of, just name a damn captain at this point. They went since Ryan McDonough was traded without a captain. And even at that, McDonough's leadership is still, how serious was it? And you get a lot of people that said Callahan's leadership was a little bit overrated, but I don't know. The Rangers, to quote Rick Pitino, Mark Messier ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, why are you naming a captain for the sake of naming a captain?
Yep.
Especially with a guy that has a terrible cap hit, that's likely going to be a cap casualty once that no movement clause goes down to a limited no trade clause. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense. I literally just want to put up the picture that was edited online. It says "That's so Rangers" instead of "That's so Raven," because that's literally what this is. It's the Rangers being the Rangers and big braining it over and over again because smartest man in the room syndrome. It's what it comes down to every time with them.
You know, just one more counterpoint to that, Phil. I don't care about that. Marty Stanley was captain for 1 year. That was it. It was Vinny Lecavalier went to Philadelphia. He was the captain 13-14, and then they traded him. He didn't even finish the season as a captain. So
things I'd do for the Rangers to find a way to do that with Trouba. Have him
Wait
just
till
be a
next year.
1 year captain. Yeah, I think next year, but at the same time, there's questions maybe with the cap jump being so big that if they'll even move him, but
I don't know. I could definitely see them moving him if they can get rid of all that salary or a vast majority of it without having to retain too much. I think he's definitely got to go.
I agree. I mean, heads need to roll if this is another failure of a season and a big contract has to be moved. And I'd say him and Panarin are probably the two bigger names with that. I just wonder if they're going to lean more towards Panarin moving just because of the fact that Trouba is the captain because of his cap hits less and all that. I just wonder if they're going to move Panarin before they move Trouba. But if it was up to me and their season goes the way it did last year, I would move both. I would truly move both because this rebuild has just been a complete disaster. I just don't understand the point of the rebuild when you have like 4 guys now left on the team that are 23 or younger. 4 or 5 just doesn't make sense.
Rushing everything.
The Rangers were given a little bit of fool's gold and right before the lockout the lockdowns happened. They went on the run. Shesterkin was doing great. They were starting to press for the playoffs. Mika Zibanejad had a 5-goal game. Everybody's looking at them and going, this is a playoff team. This is a playoff team. This is a playoff team. We can accelerate this rebuild. No, you can't. You can't accelerate the rebuild. And you have Jeff Gorton, who made mistakes before this. We've covered this, where it was Jeff Gorton handing out $20 million worth of contracts to Trouba and Panarin, and those are aging. Panarin, say what you will, 90 plus points, 3 of his 4 years as a Ranger. But I mean, that Jacob Trouba contract, that aged like milk in Arizona's sun in a matter of minutes, because before October was done, he already wasn't the number 1 defenseman.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, the problem I have with that is that Gorton basically bid against himself. Trouba forced his way there. They didn't have to give him $8 million. They could have kept him around $6 million. And then if he didn't want to sign, you could have dealt him elsewhere and gotten pieces for him. That could have been it. I mean, he wanted to be there. He wanted to be there because his wife was going to be a doctor, and you could have held that over his head and say, "Hey, you know what? You want to be here. You're not getting $8 million a year to be here. You're not worth $8 million on this market, especially when Otto gave $8 million to Shabbat, who was a better puck mover and a better defenseman. So I really don't understand that one. But
yeah, I don't understand either. I talk about with CJ and Steven all the time. We're just like talking about how if New York is so great to play, why do players never take a discount here? Even RFAs, they never give discounts to. I just don't understand why.
They're the number 1 market. They're supposed to pay. Them in Montreal, they're supposed to pay. Toronto, they're supposed to pay.
part of the problem is that the property taxes in New York are probably the second worst outside of California, and that's a big thing. And that's why places like Florida and Texas can get away with those sweetheart contracts, because due to the fact that they're playing 41 games in a much lower property tax area, state, I should say, there's like nothing there. Like if you were like playing for the Canes, like that's why they could sign Aho to that deal that they had got him to, that offer sheet, and they were fine with that. And then his next deal maybe about like 10 million, which will actually be really good for a guy of his caliber, and he'll be good. But all the taxes here are the worst. And Toronto's another area where players they tend to avoid because the property taxes are very high there. They're probably some of the highest in Canada.
Montreal's another one.
Montreal, they a lot of I think players, income and state taxes are all it's and then property taxes too. It matters. Everything factors in, and fans don't think about these things. The players they have to because depending on what you're looking at and where you're looking at living, you're going to lose a lot of money off of that contract.
Just to extend a little bit further, and sorry to keep talking, Core, but go with what Phil is saying. Where are my kids going to go to school? What's my neighborhood going to look like? These are all things that apply to the players. The reason why the fans don't think about it is we just think you're going to play for the team I root for. That's it.
Yeah.
Is for the player who's not from here, who didn't root for this team forever, Adam Fox notwithstanding, they have to think about the rest of their lives and how they're going to set it all up. And after all, look around Long Island. It's the bunch of New York Islanders who are former Islanders that still live here because they still enjoy it.
My only problem is the fact that even teams like Toronto and Boston, they could get fourth liners at a very affordable price. Why are the Rangers paying $3.6 million to Barclay Goodrow just because he held the cup up twice? Like it just doesn't make sense to me that this team can't even sign fourth liners for an affordable price until this offseason where they actually learned something that they didn't know about. They're only late to the party here, but where you could just sign older players and give them a bunch of bonuses.
Well, Nick Bonino was making what, 2-3 million last year. I mean, if players get to a certain age, they're willing to take that pay cut. That's why when people talk about Vladimir Tarasenko coming back to the Rangers on a 1-year deal for chicken feed, that ain't happening. I'm sorry. I know Phil has contradicted me on this, but I don't think that's happening. This is his chance to cash in one more time. And because if let's say he goes for the 1-year deal, his numbers are still 50 points. You're not seeing $8 million ever again.
I don't think it makes sense for Tarasenko to sign a long-term deal personally, just because the cap's going up next year, and he just got to New York. I doubt he's going to want to move his family again. I think he wants to be here. I really do. It's just the fact that the Rangers are holding on to Barclay Goodrow and other players, so they just can't sign him. But I think he wants to be in New York. I truly do. And it makes sense for him because he had a little bit of a down year. He could build his value back up for the cap going up and then sign a long-term deal next offseason.
Yeah, I think that's what he wants too. I think they're at the point where, and I mean, obviously he just fired his old agent Paul Theophanis to go to CAA with JP Barry and Pat Brisson, who are two of the big super agents in the NHL. Like, you want to talk about like a Scott Boras or Drew Rosenhaus, those two are like the closest things the NHL has to that. So I do think that Tarasenko wants to be here. I think that he would be best served by being here, but I don't know if Chris Drury at this point is going to move Barclay Goodrow. I don't know why. I mean, you have an overabundance of fourth line talent, and you're going to tell me that there's enough of a difference between Barclay Goodrow and Tyler Pitlick for them to pay Barclay Goodrow almost $3 million more than Tyler Pitlick? I don't see it. Same goes for Nick Bonino. Nick Bonino, for me, is a better player, and he's making a third, maybe a quarter of what Barclay Goodrow is making. So I don't want to. I really don't want to like kind of speculate what's going on in Chris Drury's mind because I really don't know, to tell you the truth. But it seems to me like for whatever reason they don't want to get rid of him. But why do you need to overpay third, fourth line forwards when you have that already? You went out and you got all that depth this offseason. So I don't know. It just doesn't add up.
here's just another thing I got to throw out there, and obviously we're going to talk about this tomorrow anyway. But does Vladimir Tarasenko on the Rangers still make any sense?
I
Like
think so.
Yeah.
power play 2? What are you going to do with? All right, then trade Kako and Lafreniere.
There's a way to play both of them in the top 6, and I've been saying this if they bring back Tarasenko. And either way, I get the vibe that knowing how the Rangers operate, Blake Wheeler's going to be on power play 1 either way. It wouldn't shock me.
I know.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Blake Wheeler is instead of the kids. But for the top 6, they could easily go with like number of different combinations if they want to. I think the best combination they could go with is you go with Panarin, Zibanejad, Tarasenko as that first line, since they tried that for a bit and I thought it worked. They just didn't give it enough of a chance. And then you could just move the kid line up to the second line, make Kreider, Trocheck, Wheeler your third line, and then you have that fourth line of VC, Benino, and Pitlick.
I could see that. I mean, the other thing I was going to say was I would, depending on what Lafreniere and Kako look like in camp, you could go a top line of Zibanejad, Lafreniere, and Kako. I know that a lot of people are going to sit there and say, "What? Why would they get that? What did they do to deserve that?" To me, Kreider is not consistent enough, at even strength to be on a top line. At this point, I would rather see him move down a line and see him work and really work to get his minutes on a top line, because he doesn't give you that every night. But you could still keep him on power play 1, front of the net. He's not going to lose his power play minutes, so you have him happy that way. And then you can have a second line of, I would say, Hedel, Panarin, and I would go Tarasenko there. And that's a pretty dynamic scoring line. And then you have a third line of Kreider, Trocheck, and Wheeler. And that's a big, fast, physical line that just grinds down and has some offensive pop to it. And then your fourth line could be something like Benino, VC, and Pitlick. So
I like that idea, that Wheeler line with Kreider and Trocheck. I got to ask you guys, do you really think they're going to split up Kreider and Zibanejad for a prolonged period of time? Because actually, I did like that line last year when it was Kreider, VZ, and Trocheck.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I'm hoping that Laviolette steps in there and he actually is a disciplinarian like we expect, and he actually commands respect in the room and isn't going to care about the buddy shit that all these players have. He's not going to care about friendships. He's going to do what's best for the team and what makes the team go out there and give them the best results. So that's what I'm hoping for. And if he doesn't do that, then we got serious problems, and it's just going to be the same thing that we've seen for the past few seasons. So
well, again, he's done that already with different teams. Phil, I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with that. I do think that Laviolette's not going to take anybody's shit. I mean, that's one of the things that I was noting as a pro to him coming in for, is he's not going to take anybody's shit. He's not. He's going to come in and he's going to take control of that room. And I mean, you've seen the clips of him from the 24/7 when it was Rangers Flyers, and the way that he handled guys like Giroux and Hartnell and Yager and Voracek and Couturier and so on. He's not going to sit there and be intimidated by somebody. There's nobody that's going to intimidate him. If he can handle a room that had Jaromir Jagr in it, I think he can handle a room that has all these other players in it. None of these players should intimidate Peter Laviolette. And not only that, but he handled Alexander Ovechkin for how many years? Not that he had to do a whole lot with him. It's just kind of like, oh, go out there, go on the power play, do your thing. We know you're getting older. You're not going to skate through 6 guys anymore and score. But, I mean, just go out there and do your thing. But, just also pay attention a little bit to defense. You're not getting Selke caliber defense out of Alexander Ovechkin, and why do you need it? Guy scores 50 goals a damn year. So.
By the way, Core, just to point it out, I agree 100% with Agent Smith right there, saying no, he doesn't. Too many cooks in the kitchen isn't good. And the other one saying, to be honest, I wasn't that impressed with Vlad. Neither was I. I like Vlad, good guy, but I'm just not sure if he's really a fit. I thought he was going to be. I thought so much good stuff, and then he didn't do much in the playoffs. He scored, twice, and then was never heard from again? There
Well,
was a lot of that went around with the Rangers. The first 2 games, great. What happened the last 4?
Well, the problem is that once Kane came in, Tarasenko was not in a good enough position to succeed anymore. He got bumped down the power play too, except for when they had the 1A, 1B units, which was working, and yet Gallant switched it up again. But that's Mike Kelly's fault, right, Gallant? But he ended up being moved down the power play too. He ended up splitting up the lines too. That was working with Tarasenko, and it just didn't make sense. Tarasenko was not in a good position to succeed with the Rangers once Kane came in. I think that without Kane being here, it would be the right fit for Tarasenko, and I think he fit better with the team than Kane. I love Kane, and I'd love for him to be back too, but I agree that too many cooks in the kitchen could be bad, but I don't think that Tarasenko would make it too many cooks in the kitchen. I think if you brought both back, then you're talking about it being a bad mix.
Yeah.
We're getting dangerously close to the early 2000s, guys, when their centers were Eric Lindros, Peter Nedved, and Mark Messier. And eventually, remember when the Rangers had that super line of, and I say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, of Bobby Holik centering Eric Lindros and Mark Messier.
That lasted for a very, very short time, though. But the problem with those teams were Mike Richter was inconsistent and always hurt. The defense was nothing outside of Brian Leach. I mean, you brought in Vladimir Malikov, and Vladimir Malikov got hurt like the very first game he played with the team, missed most of it, just about all of the 2001 season. You bring in Tom Poti, you trade your wing depth of Mike York. After you don't trade Mike York to get Pavel friggin' Bure, you deal him to Edmonton for Tom friggin' Poti. What was that? You didn't need another puck mover. You needed a two-way defenseman. Tomas Klocek, who we all thought was going to come up and be a real good bruising defenseman in the mold of somebody like Darius Kasparaitis, had those 3 suspensions, then blew out his knee, was never the same player after that.
Mm-hmm.
They broke up the checkmates line with the Lindros trade. And they didn't get Yager because they wanted the whole checkmates 2.0, the better version of it with Yager, Dvorak, and Nedved. And Glenn Sather was doing God knows what in Banff and not picking up Craig Patrick's call. So I mean that trade didn't go through, and they had to go trade for Lindros. But there were no wing depth. There was no defensive depth. These teams are not. This team's not even close to that. So don't make that comparison.
Well, I'm just looking at it and saying, I think if adding Vlad, that's just another talent guy. And yes, as we said before, you're going to need talent eventually to succeed, but they need a little bit more grit.
The problem is, where is that guy that they could get that brings grit, but also brings the offensive ability, like a Kachuk Light, like a guy like Bunting that was just on the market, just a guy like that. The problem is they don't grow on trees, and I don't know where the Rangers find that guy unless Offman blows him away in the preseason or in the AHL to start the season. He gets called up. Otherwise, we're just going to be looking at a situation where the Rangers are going to crawl to the deadline again, and then they're going to have to do some stupid cat maneuvering to bring in someone else.
I don't know. I look at someone like Yanni Gord, and that's like somebody that they could have used. Or, I mean, we all thought Trocheck was going to be that guy. And Trocheck played well, 60 points. I mean, 20 plus goals. I mean, you can't complain about that. That's good, solid second line center numbers right there.
I think those are his best numbers since Florida, Phil.
Yeah, his best number since those 30-goal, 70-point season. But I think I get the concerns about grit, and it's not just grit that you need. It's a tenacity. It's a style of play. The team has to buy in. It's not just the players. The entire team has to buy into being aggressive on the forecheck, moving their feet, and playing a fast game. This team did not play a fast game at all these past 2 years. And that's part of why their numbers are terrible at 5-on-5. It's because they're not getting in on the forecheck. They're not wearing guys down. I mean, grit, I see this comment, not grit, you need Jam from Freak Bleach. It's almost the same thing. Like you want to talk about jam, you want to play semantics with it, whatever. I'm not going to get into that argument because it's really just a petty one. But it's you have to play a certain type of way, and it's not go bang everybody and crash everybody into the boards and 1995 New Jersey Devils friggin' grind line crap with Holik, McKay, and Peluso, the bash line or whatever the hell they were called. So it just you need to play with more intensity, and that's what this team has lacked for a long time, is that intensity, that drive. That's what made those 2014 and 2015 teams so effective, is that they just came at you in waves and they just kept going and going and going. And they weren't the most physical teams. LA wore them down, and that's why they lost to LA, because LA was a big team. But if that LA team played that Rangers team now with this game and the way that the game is these days, that Ranger team would beat that LA team handily, because the game has changed. And they have the pieces to be able to play that way. They have to start buying in, like Laviolette said, from day one, from the summer. And Keenan said the same thing in 1993 when he took over. You have to buy in. This training camp has to be an absolute ringer. It has to be hell. And they have to buy in, and they have to come prepared. And especially Kako and Lafreniere. I want to see improvements in speed. I want to see improvements in strength, and I want to see improvements in conditioning. Get here and be committed to win.
Yeah, I can't disagree with the one thing that you said. Yeah, they need to buy in, especially because that's something that they just haven't done since, like you mentioned, 2014, 2015. Also, maybe the Rangers win that cup with video review was a thing then, but that's another conversation. But
yeah, that still sticks in my craw. It was my birthday when that happened, so I'm even more annoyed about it.
I'd be even more bitter.
Dwight King was interfering with him. Come on, Tim Peel, you screwed that up.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. But yeah, they need to buy in, and you just even if you look at a team like the Golden Knights, who just won the cup, their most effective player was Jonathan Marchessault, who's 5'9", right? And he even played with intensity, and he was getting in guys' faces, not giving a shit. It's about buying in and committing to the grind. That's what it is, and we didn't see it from the players because they had a jackass head coach who had no idea what he was doing, and his biggest adjustment was changing lines like he changes underwear, like we always talk about. So I think things are going to be very different with Laviolette. And with Trocheck, to go back to that, I think part of the problem is he does not fit with Panarin. I think they have to use him as a third-line center, use him as a matchup center, and let Hedl play with Panarin. I don't care if Panarin cries about it or complains. Suck it up. Suck it up. You're making 11 and a half sheets. You could suck it up and play with Philip Hedl.
I mean, but by the way, this is why the players should never be GMs. Ever. You want to cry about it and go, oh, they got rid of Ryan Strome. Ryan Strome is a scrub. I'm sorry. I'm not going to come out with such strong language that often. Ryan Strome was a scrub.
Yeah, I don't think Ryan Strome was great. Yeah, I get it. He was buddy-buddy with Panarin, and they had some decent chemistry. But that was something that wasn't going to work long-term. And you got to move, like Python was saying, you got to move on from different these buddy situations and these friendships. We don't need to that's not need to we don't need to abide by these and accommodate these and have these players playing with their friends. We need to get the best combinations that work, and the players need to buy in, and Laviolette will definitely change that. I'm pretty confident that Laviolette's going to come in and is not going to care about any of that. And that's a good thing for me. And I think we got somebody else coming on with us here.
Yeah, see, Jeff.
Sorry about that, boys.
Joining in audio form.
Yep. Made it just
Internet's
in time,
down.
right?
All good. The more the merrier.
Yeah. You said your internet's down?
Dude, it's over an hour and a half to friggin' get home, and this is what I come home to.
Don't worry. Not as bad as Anthony's internet.
Ah,
Anthony's the king of bad
terrible.
internet. Yeah, but I don't know if I really have much else to say when it comes to Laviolette and the fragile leadership and everything. But yeah, they need to find the right mix. Enough with the buddy stuff. Find the right mix and get going and commit to buying in. And if players are going to be soft and cry about it, trade them. Trade them.
Easier said than done in certain circumstances.
Especially
True,
when you
because they
sign
handed
to
no
an
trade clause out like
7-year
Candy.
contract and no move.
Yeah, especially the backup goalies too. Didn't quick get a modified, no trade clause even.
Didn't Halak get a full no move?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Team's ridiculous, but we'll move on and we'll jump into the best segment. Move into some layup talk.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever had to answer.
I'm gonna say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one.
And welcome back to not Big Apple Hockey's layup talk. As today we are going to be doing. Well, Mark still made the bar talk. I threw my own question in there, but we'll save that one for the end.
Good.
I'll be honest, I read the questions and I feel like Mark was pressured here to not put a lot of layups in. I feel like he knew Phil and I were going to tag team and get in on him if he put too many layups in. So I feel like he didn't include many. But if you do not know how the game works, you have your choice of drink. You could either buy a round if you're so confident on the topic, or if you're so on it, you drink a beer. And if you disagree completely, you have a shot. So let's jump right into it. So we have a couple Ranger ones more than around the league, but we also will be going around the league. So after failing to advance to the second round this past season, the Rangers made some changes, including firing Gerard Gallant and hiring Mark, say his name.
Peter Laviolette.
He got it. He got it. The New York Rangers will win a playoff series in 2024 under Peter Laviolette. Phil, you start.
I'm gonna say round. They have to, because if they don't win a series with Laviolette, they are in deep trouble, and heads are going to roll. So I think Laviolette, and part of the reason why Laviolette was high on my list of coaches that I wanted to hire was because of the fact that Laviolette understands the levity of what he's walking into. He is walking into a pressure cooker in a big market with an owner that is very demanding. And I know people personally who have worked under James Dolan. So I know what he's like. And I've got secondhand accounts from people that I've known for a very long time that know what Peter Laviolette, or have a good idea of what Peter Laviolette is up against. So if they don't win and they get knocked out in the first round, this team is in big trouble. So they have to. I'm not even trying to be a homer by going round. They have to win a series. So round.
See Jets.
Ditto to everything that he just said. Because, dude, if they don't, I'd be pretty scared as to what's going to come next for the New York Rangers if they don't win. I think trade rumors are going to be the least of our concerns. It's going to be the actual trades they make when it does happen.
Yeah.
Mark.
I'm going to buy a round on this as well. I'm not exactly going to say it's a layup, since I get to say this for yours instead of mine. But I do have to say they're going to win a round, and it's because Laviolette is a better tactician. He's going to figure different ways to attack when the opposing coach changes up on him. Lindy Ruff basically made one adjustment and smothered the Rangers. That's not going to happen. And I'll tell you what, that's a team they're going to beat. They're going to beat the New Jersey Devils, because I don't know whether or not the Devils goaltending is going to hold up in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I was going to jump into it because I'm going to buy a round as well. I think that, like you guys were saying, Laviolette's going to bring the intensity, and part of it has to do with New Jersey. I feel like they're going to be overconfident going into the series, considering how much they spanked the Rangers and pantsed them with Gerard Gallant as the coach. I don't think that's going to happen with Laviolette. They're going to see a very different Rangers team. And unless they get Connor Hellebuck at the deadline and a legit goaltender, I don't see them getting past the Rangers next year. Maybe I'm being biased with that and a homer, but I just don't see it happening. And if the Rangers do lose a series, like you said, they're in deep trouble, and maybe future Ranger Devontaes will come to fruition for me.
Let me just throw this one in there. Everybody keeps throwing out like Connor Hellebuck and goaltenders being traded at the deadline. When's the last time a goalie went at the deadline and made a real impact? Other than what was the guy that the Islanders traded in 2006? Is that Dublitz? No, I'm screwing it up.
No, that Wayne Dublovich was just their
No, who was the guy that went to Edmonton from the Islanders?
2006.
2006. That's like the last goalie that really made a difference. You got to get your goalies.
Dwayne Rollison.
Oh,
Yeah,
Rolly the
Dwayne
goalie.
Rollison didn't go from the Islanders though. He was an Islander after.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking Rollison, but I thought he was.
Yeah, like why? Yeah, where are you getting
All
that?
right, was it? All right. Well, I knew he was an Islander at some point.
No,
We
he
could
was
just
an
put
Islander
this up.
well after that, buddy.
So you know what? We had to get the graphic up there, guys.
Yep, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, and here's how badly Mark messed up. So Dwayne Rollison was on the Minnesota Wild from 2001 to 2006, and was
that
traded
him and
to
Manny
the Edmonton
Fernandez back
Oilers
then?
at the deadline. Anyone want to take a guess as to when Dwayne Rollison came to the New York Islanders?
Wasn't it like 2010 or something?
2009, 2010.
It's okay. Mark messed up worse off air. Maybe I'll keep that. Do I keep that off air for you, Mark? When you
Oh,
called
you could go right
Trevor
ahead.
Zegras the wrong.
I misspelled Georgiev.
Oh, not the Georgiev one. When you called Trevor Zegras Troy Zegras.
Oh
off
no,
air.
I forgot his. No, I forgot his name for a second. I said I was thinking Troy.
Okay, you were maybe thinking Troy Terry. I'll give a little bit of the benefit of the
Yeah,
doubt.
no,
but
because I just forgot. I was trying to search it. We got team previews coming up.
It's okay.
As
He
we were
didn't,
getting
call,
in-
he didn't call him Justin Zegras. We're good.
yeah, or
Justin
Anthony Zegras. But I was almost leaning towards layup with that question mark. I will say, but I'll save it for a juicy one.
Metro- It was a
No, I
tough
wouldn't say
division to
that's a layup. I'll. You know me. I'm usually the harshest out of me and Anthony when it comes to judging layups with him. So I can't say that's a layup.
I was leaning towards it with just thinking about the Devils, but they could also play Carolina, who could give them trouble. So that's keeping me from saying it's a layup. But next question, Capo Caco is looking to finally have a breakout season. Capo Caco will hit 50 points next season. Sea Jets, kick us off.
Oh God. Screw it. Buy around on him.
Wow.
Oh,
I want it more than
because
anyone
you're
else.
confident, bud.
I want him. I listen. I would love for him to get 70 points next season. I would love for him to be what Statboy Steven wants him to be, which is the next Mark Stone. So I'm praying on him.
Phil.
Yeah. I'm gonna go beer. It really depends on the usage. I really want to see a strong training camp from him. That's the first thing, just a baby step for me. And then I want to see a strong start to the season. And then I want to see, after that, I want them to keep him in the top 6 because I felt like his play last year was good enough to stay there. And I think he could have had he stayed there the whole season. So, I mean, the guy's going to go through a couple scoring slumps, here and there. Every player does. But Chris Kreider didn't get demoted until when? What, February it was?
Not soon enough.
What's that?
Not soon enough.
Not so. Yeah, exactly. Not soon enough. So let's give Capo Caco and Alexi Lafreniere the leashes that we give to guys like Artemi Panarin and Chris Kreider and let them grow. They need to grow. Larry Brooks was right. You know what? I know a lot of people like to hate on Larry Brooks, but that article was nothing but bullseyes.
Yep.
Nothing but bullseyes.
Please unblock me on Twitter, Larry. All right, Mark.
Again, Phil, just to say one thing about Larry Brooks, you're like, yes, Larry, I agree with you. Yes, Larry, I agree with you. And then it turns into, why'd you have to say that now? Now you just really that. You couldn't have picked the worst thing to say. For this, I'm actually, I'm high on Kako. I'm going to buy a round. Let me tell you guys a brief children's story. It's called Capo
Okay.
Kako and the Three Coaches. The first coach was too cold. The second coach was too cold. And the third coach was just right. That's what I'm hoping that's going to happen with this. Because I'm tired of having we've talked about this the game in Calgary in his first year. He was actually producing points for the Rangers. He scored a goal in that game, takes a bad penalty. Yeah. And then Quinn benches him. He never sees the PP1 ever again, or if he was that much the ice. Come on. And Gerard Gallant, he's scratching for Dryden Hunt in this in the game 6, an elimination game. Please. No, hopefully Laviolette knows what to do.
Yeah, I'm going to buy around too. And the reason why I'm buying around is because you guys are also forgetting a very big key factor going into next season. Capo Kako is playing under a contract year. This is a contract year for Kako. He is going to be hungry. He's going to be determined. Tarasenko, it doesn't look like it's coming back, which we'll talk about him soon. And Kane probably isn't going to come back either. And Kako is going to force his way into the top 6, I feel like, because this isn't a Gallant thing. This isn't a Quinn thing where you have your Colin Blackwells playing, where you have your Jimmy Vesey's playing, Barclay Goodrow, Jesper Foss. It's not going to be that situation. I feel like he's going to actually play the better players, unless this is Drury whispering in his ear. So, which who knows? But I got to buy around on it.
Size takes time to develop, by the way.
What was that?
Size takes time to develop.
That too. Was there a comment that you want me to pull up, Phil? You looked interesting.
No,
on the
I was
comments.
saying hi to Zook, actually. I messed up his name. I just pressed an L, so there's a Phil messed up there. But one other thing I want to say before we get off this topic is the fact that Peter Laviolette, for some reason, has this reputation of not being a developmental coach. I'm guessing because of his time in Washington, where who did he have to develop? Connor McMichael? I mean, what else? What else did they have in Washington to really develop in terms of young talent? It just they had no prospects. They're one of the worst farm systems in the league. It's not really a lot that they were able to integrate over the years. But
he had Rasmus Sandin for about a week or two, and he looked pretty good.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's really it. It's Sandin. But I mean, in Nashville, he had a couple of guys that ended up being pretty good forwards that developed under his watch, in the names of Victor Arvidsson and Philip Forsberg. So I don't understand why people say, oh, well, he can't develop anybody. No, that's just flat out wrong. And if you want to talk about defense, Ryan Ellis and Roman Josi. So
100%. I mean, we're only really asking for him to score 10 more points.
And yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
you get through the 40-point plateau. The next one's 50.
Yeah, I think Washington is an outlier of how Laviolette is as a coach. I mentioned this when he first got hired, and I fired up a stream when he got hired. I was doing a deep dive on, I think it was Money Puck, and I was looking at all the even strength numbers under Laviolette. Nashville finished top 5 and top 10 every single year in the even strength numbers, whether it was Corsi, goals for, goals against, whatever. Nashville finished top 10, and the only exception was like 1 year where they were top 12. But pretty much every year that he was there, they were top 10 in even strength numbers. What does this team suck at? Even strength play.
I just have to say this. I think Money Puck still has the greatest percentage to win this year's cup, being the Toronto Maple Leafs. The one that was handed out, a month ago. How did they? Oh, geez. It was always like 25%. Something ungodly.
Yeah, I don't know how they get those percentages, but we'll move on. So the New York Rangers, or I messed up. Get my messed up gif up. Vladimir Tarasenko is still on the open market. The New York Rangers will re-sign Tarasenko to a 1-year deal. Mark, you start off.
I'm going to take a shot on this one. I think he's going to go look for something that's going to be a little bit more friendly, longer term. I know they're saying the cap's going up next year. They've been promising the cap's going up all the time. I'm not a big believer that he's going to just wait it out, because I think there's too much to risk. Go get your money now, Vlad. And I just also don't see the Rangers having a spot for him, as I alluded to in the opening.
Felk.
I'm really torn between Shot and Beer. I wonder how low Tarasenko was willing to go on the AAV for a year. I don't think he gets a multi-year deal at this point. I really don't. I think teams are scared of his age, the fact that he's going to decline at some point, and the fact that he's had multiple injuries on his shooting shoulder. I just don't see the multi-year deal right now. I think we're at a point in the summer where I think the big deals are done being handed out. And this is the crunch time where, teams try to, or players try to scramble to find a team. And I think the buyers are really more in the driver's seat here than the players. So it's just really the general managers and the owners that have the upper hand here. So I'm going to say Beer, just because I do think there is a possibility that if it gets low enough to the point where the Rangers could somehow work this with the cap, where they could move Gaudreau and try to get a suitor to take all that salary, I think there is a possibility that there could be a reunion between the teams, but between the team and the player. But it's a very small chance. So,
See Jets.
I'm throwing back a shot on this one. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. Especially with dealing with Barkley Gaudreau. The longer the summer goes on, the less cap space teams have. So the price of moving him is just going up and up and up. And even if Tarasenko does somehow make it relatively affordable for himself, what is affordable? $3 million a year? So you can take less than that. I think if the Rangers are going to make another signing this offseason for the roster, it's going to be Patrick Kane. And he'll be activated in December or January, and that'll be our quote-unquote trade deadline acquisition, because I don't think we'll have the money to do anything else. Miller already got more than I expected. I'm going to go ahead and assume Laffy's going to get more than what I expected, which was originally the same contract Kako got. I think Laffy's going to get 2.2 or 2.3, put us in an even worse cap situation than we're already in, because every penny does count. And unless Tarasenko takes $1 million a year, I don't see any world where he could stay with the New York Rangers.
What did you expect Miller to get? I'm curious after hearing you say that.
3 times 3, the exact contract Lindgren got. You could account for the cap space going up and increase the percentage. I forget what the percentage that Lindgren got. I think it was 5 or 6%. So whatever 5 or 6% of the cap was now would be what Miller got, i.e. the same contract that Ryan Lindgren got, 3 years at that percentage.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked that way. The way that I looked at it with that was that you're buying out one of his UFA years potentially. So you're going into a territory where you're going to take away from his next deal. So you would have had to go with the AAV even higher. I was expecting around 4x2, so $8 million over 2 years. So I thought that they actually came in a little under what he was going to get.
The only reason I argue against the same cap hit as Lindgren is because that stretch we had without Lindgren this year, how poorly the team performed. We're Miller is a lot flat, and I love Keandre Miller. This is not by any means me knocking Keandre Miller, because he's one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player on the team right now. I just thought if you're talking about in terms of sheer value, what they bring to the team for wins, I don't know how you measure WAR in the NHL, but I would assume his WAR is similar to that of Ryan Lindgren, and that's where I got that figure from.
No, I get the argument there, and I do agree with you to a point. Especially with the way that they played without Lindgren, that was just horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
I also happen to think that one of the challenge that Laviolette's got is that he's got to split up Miller and Trouba.
Oh God, yes, please.
Yeah. I think we're all wishing for that one, but yeah, and then with Miller too, it's the consistency issues. That's the other problem I have, because there's been way too many times now where he's had a good first half, bad second half, or vice versa, and it's just a problem. But with this one, I'm going to go with a beer, and my reasoning why I'm going with a beer on this one is because I feel like they're not under pressure to move Barkley Goudreau anymore. I feel like before they felt pressure to move him. Now, if they want to move him, they're fine with either going into the season with him, but if they want to move him, then they'll be able to, because they're not going to force a trade. They're not going to make it seem like, okay, we need to trade Barkley Goudreau, so we have to give up a second with him. I think that will drive the price of the asset you have to attach with him down. And I think that Tarasenko, like I said, wants to stay in New York. So I think that there is certainly a path here. And the fact that he fired his agent also makes me question if he wants to stay.
Yeah, but why would you fire your agent to get the big time agent to get a 1-year deal?
Right.
Well, it's not that he's doing it to do that. I think it's just at the point where we're at, like CJ just said it before. We're at the point in the season where a lot of cap space has already been used. So teams are not going to go around and throwing out, big 2 multi-year deals to guys like Tarasenko at this point. So he may have to take like a 1-year, $3.5 million deal just to find a team just for a year, just play on a show me type deal, and then come back next year when the cap goes up. And you know what? Okay, now I can get the deal that I'm looking for.
Right.
On this day in 2016, the Rangers acquired Mika Zibanejad and a second-round pick for Derek Brassard and a 7th-round pick. The Mika Zibanejad trade is a top 3 trade in Rangers history. Phil, kick us off.
Just get the GIF.
Yep. I also added one there in the top corner.
Oh, there is one. How about that?
How is this not?
I knew that was coming.
Trades in this team's history are probably the Scott Gomez Ryan McDonough deal, which was just a total win for them, and then after that, I mean, there are other trades that you could say that would battle it out for that 3rd spot, but those are the top 2 trades in this team's history. Easy.
Sea Jets.
Yeah, it's pretty much a layup.
He just doesn't even have anything.
He doesn't have anything to say. He's
I mean,
just not saying anything.
Dude, I don't even know.
What there to say?
I'm trying to think like who would like what 2 trades would push him out of the top 3. My top 3 is the Messier trade, the Gomez trade, and the Zibanejad trade in any order.
Okay, Mark, what's your answer since you posed the questions? Because
I'm going to throw a devil's advocate question on this one, guys. Is he even the best player traded or best trade involving a player in that trade? Because the Derek Brassard to the Rangers trade, that was Derek Brassard, John Moore, and Derek Dorsett, 3 integral players to a Stanley Cup Finals run in 2014. And Brassard ended up getting Zibanejad after
here's the
that.
other part of the question, Mark. Here's your devil's advocate answer. Who were they traded for that helped sink them in 2014? Did you think about that one?
Well, unfortunately, they traded for Marian Gaborik, and he ended up playing against the Rangers.
Exactly. So no.
But by the way, no, I would actually put this. I would actually put this in the top 3. I would put this with probably. I would put it in the top 3. Definitely top 5. You got a star center. This is almost like the reverse of the Rick Middleton trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's most definitely a layup. It's not. Mark's a silly man, isn't he? Mark is comedy.
Sometimes you have to have the layups to have the conversation.
I'm pretty sure that your girlfriend must appreciate how silly of a man you are.
She does actually very much.
She definitely does.
She's lucky to have someone make her laugh all the time the way you make us laugh, because you are comedy with that one.
Yeah, yeah, and she's in the chats too. It's funny. You'll see her in the chat. she'll rip on him too, and then say like, "What are you doing?" and stuff like that.
Mark, get it together.
Yeah, Mark, get it together is usually her trademark.
But yeah, I mean, you get a number 1 center for basically peanuts, and you get a second. They didn't use the second, but you get a second too. Yeah, it's not even a debate. It's not even a debate. Moving on, the Florida Panthers reached the Stanley Cup Finals this past season after sneaking in to the postseason. The Florida Panthers will easily make the playoffs next season. NFC Jets.
Easily is an interesting term. Let me
My man's
boy.
picking up on things.
the vocabulary.
Yeah.
God, man. Depends on how Kachuk recovers. Well, you know what? Hold on. Mark Stahl's gone. I'm buying a round on that.
Mark Stahl's gone.
Mark Saul's gone. Round immediate.
Can I change to layup? I'm just kidding.
Oh god.
Felk.
Oh, I'm gonna say shot only because that word easily is in there. That's the only reason why I think they can make the playoffs. But shot the word easily is implying that they're probably going to be fighting for the division crown, and they'll have clinched the playoffs well before the season ends. So I don't see that unless they go out and make some sort of big move like the beginning of February or maybe even into January earlier on if they have the cap space for it. But, I mean, you just traded Anthony Duclair away. You needed scoring depth. The defense is not exactly great as it is. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky, it looked like the clock struck midnight and he turned into a pumpkin again in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I don't know what I feel about that team right now. I think they're going to fight to make a playoff spot, and I can actually see them missing it. So definitely a shot on this vocabulary.
Mark.
I got to go shot as well. Pretty much for every reason that Phil outlined. What's going on with Spencer Knight? That's another question that I would have. Can Kachuk have 3 100-point seasons in a row? You expect Barkov might get a little bit more out of him. But also Paul Maurice's teams, you end up hearing, oh, they're a playoff battle team during the regular season. The problem is the regular season is a grind, 82 games or whatever the hell the NBA is doing now. That's a different story. But it's 82 games. It's hard to have that same playoff mentality and grind when you're taking on the Minnesota Wild on a Saturday afternoon in December.
Does Carter Verhaeghe score 40 goals again? Because that was probably the most quiet 40-goal season I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in, and to me, this is the shot version of a layup. This is the shot version of a layup because of the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky at the end of the season and in the playoffs, and then Alex Line too, both had their insanity runs. That's not going to happen. They didn't even get into the playoffs by themselves. It took, which I know we hear about nauseum, but we hear about the fact that, Pittsburgh beat Chicago, they would have made it, and it changed the course of everything. They didn't even get into the playoffs by themselves. They lost some depth, and I doubt that blue line is going to hold up and be any good. I think that this is an easy shot. Does anyone have anything to add with the Panthers before we move on?
Nope.
I'm good.
Last offseason, the Colorado Avalanche acquired Alexander Georgiev for 2 third-round picks and a 5th-round pick. Alexander Georgiev can lead the Colorado Avalanche to a Stanley Cup. Mark.
Shot. I have never been a believer in Alexander Georgiev. I have been very upfront about this one. If he saw me on the street, he might punch me in the face because I've said it ad nauseum. Here's just the fact. There are players in pro sports, whether or not you want to say they got the talent or the ability to do it, you just know they're not going to be able to do it. Whether it's, let me just give you a football analogy, which was, late in the game, Tony Romo's at quarterback. You see him on TV. You know the guy's brilliant. You know he's had all pro seasons. You just know he's throwing a pick at that moment. You just know it. Alexander Georgiev, when it comes time to stop the puck, he's not going to. And I don't think it's – I don't think he's – and you get the Ranger fans sometimes. Sorry, guys. Some of you have done this. Said that they should have kept Georgiev. Why?
Phil.
I'm gonna go beer. If anything, Las Vegas and then Colorado the year before, these last 2 years have shown that you don't need elite goaltending to win a Stanley Cup. Darcy Kemper had a sub 900 save percentage in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Colorado still won. Colorado improved their team from last year. The only issue is Gabriel Landeskog, is he coming back at some point this season? And if he does, is he going to be the same player that he was before? Because that's the big thing. If he doesn't come back and he's LTIR and he's done for his career or whatever, they can go out and get some major acquisition at the deadline. I would say that Colorado may be in a good position, but like they added a lot of depth, guys like Johansson, Colton, and so on. It really, and I know they dealt Newhook away, but it just seemed like Newhook wasn't making the strides that they needed them to make, but they still have a lot of depth. So I think Georgiev can, if they go out and make, I would say maybe 1 or 2 more moves.
See Jets.
I'm gonna comment on the wordplay again. I don't know if he'll lead them to a cup, but I think he can win a cup with them. But then again, with the Colorado Avalanche team, if they're fully healthy, I think you could throw me between the pipes and they'll have a chance. But to your point, though, yeah, I mean, they're with Ross Colton. Ross Colton joins. Who else did they get? I mean, Miles Wood, I'm not super high on, but you know, if he's in a depth role and he's not taking a ton of penalties like he did against the Rangers, I know I was begging for him to be in the lineup when we were playing them in the playoffs. If he could go back to when he was an effective player for the Devils, they've got a pretty solid depth. Obviously, with Landeskog out, their top 6 is not suspect, but they have a hole there. I'm gonna go ahead and say give me a beer on this one. I think only because of the wordplay. I think he can win a cup with them, but I don't think he can lead them to a cup.
Yeah, that's where mine was at, which is why I'm gonna say shot. I can't envision him leading, like even as a top 3 performer, like a top 3 argument for the Conn Smythe. I don't see him ever being that for part of why the Avalanche win a Stanley Cup. And also, I just don't think he's that great of a goalie. I don't, and he has his tantrums all the time. Like 1 goal is the end of the world for him, and he's smashing his stick on the post, and he just throws a tantrum. I just don't see it with Georgiev, and I don't think there's a chance that he leads the Avalanche, especially to a Stanley Cup.
I just also want to throw in, I think the Rangers' true backup goaltender, Benoit Allaire, is the one that got everything out of him. Benoit Allaire has done more with guys that you were going, how is this guy going to do anything? Benoit Allaire has been he's just the best. So him or Mitch Korn, 2 best goaltending coaches in the league.
Of all time. Well, Mitch Korn's not a really goaltending coach anymore. He's a consultant for the Islanders now. But one other thing that we haven't mentioned with Colorado is what the hell is going to happen with Valeri Nichushkin?
That too. Yeah.
And that's a big thing, because if he's out too, and like he's done with everything that happened with him, then oh my God. And yeah, that spells a lot of trouble for Colorado, because that's an important player right there.
Yeah, that's another big question with them. And then they also lost some pieces. They lost JT Compher, which I think he's a good player. It's not worth what he got paid, but they lost him, and they lost a couple of depth pieces. I just question if Colorado's even going to be what we thought they were. Like at one point we were talking them being the next dynasty. I question if they're even going to be that, because they have their top pairing defenseman on a contract year right now also. So that's another thing they have to worry about. But we'll move on. Connor McDavid is coming off a season where he just won the Hart, Ted Lindsay, the Rocket, and Art Ross. Connor McDavid will play a Stanley Cup final game with the Edmonton Oilers in his career. Philk.
I'm going to say beer, just because I don't see him going anywhere. I don't see Edmonton dealing him unless he like just flat out comes out and says, I want out. And they're not moving him. They'll move heaven and earth to keep him and whatever else. They're not going to make the same mistake they made with Gretzky years ago. And circumstances were a lot different back then. Peter Pocklington was bleeding out money and had to trade him, and went and traded Gretzky behind his back. So, the whole, if Wayne Gretzky can be traded, anybody can be traded thing, it just a lot of people that say that don't understand the circumstances and what was going on back then. So McDavid, I don't think he gets, like I said, I don't think he's dealt unless he requests it or demands it. But I think that they just need to make a couple of moves and just shore up the defense and then just get at least a decent goaltender, something better than Campbell or Smith or anybody like that. Or maybe even just let Stuart Skinner develop in the net and get a better goaltending coach or something. But, if they go ahead and they get some defense and they get some, I would say maybe one or two depth forwards that could really help, that team could be real dangerous.
Mark.
I hate saying it. Shot. I don't think they're ever going to make the right decisions. I don't think they're ever going to build this team good enough to be around him. And I wonder who's going to play in a different uniform first, Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, because and you know what, I'm being a little bit more tongue in cheek right now than I would be normally, but I got to say that out loud because it just seems like whatever Edmonton can do, they're not going to make the right decision. And I mean, I don't see them being a championship team anytime soon. And when that contract comes up, when Leon Draisaitl's contract comes up, that's going to be a really interesting decision. Does he stay or does he go somewhere else to blaze his own legacy?
Sea Jets.
Throwing back a shot on this one too. And I don't think it's on McDavid and the Oilers. I think if you look around as to who they'd have to get past in order to get there, LA just got significantly better with Dubois. Seattle Kraken are only going to get better. Hold on, there's another team I'm missing out on.
Vegas.
Right. The team that literally just won the Stanley
Seattle's
Cup
coming up.
is pretty solid. Even the Blues have a good young core in place with Kyrou and Thomas. I'm not worried about Chicago yet. You saw the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas
Seattle's
Stars
coming up.
there are a lot of teams that they would need to get past first, and I don't think going into next season there's going to be an easy round in the Western Conference playoffs. Not that there ever is an easy round in the playoffs, but I think if there was a year to do it, it was probably this year because the Western Conference is only getting better, and I don't see how the Oilers are getting much better with how much money they have committed to their top guys, Darnell Nurse, Draisaitl, and McDavid. And to bounce off the other one, is Draisaitl even going to be there for another 2 years? I would be amazed if he re-signed in Edmonton. I don't see him sticking around, and I don't know if McDavid stays after Draisaitl leaves.
Yeah, I'm going shot too. I completely agree about Draisaitl leaving. The only reason that you might want to upgrade to a beer is because of what you just ended that point on, Sea Jets, where maybe he'll leave after Draisaitl does, and then maybe he'll go to a team that could actually build around him. But I don't see Edmonton being able to build around him either. I mean, look at their goaltending. And that Jack Campbell contract is unmovable. It's unmovable. There's no shot they're going to be able to, and he's not going to be anything close to what he was in Toronto. And even what he was in Toronto was not good enough to win them around. So,
which contract is worse, Jordan Binnington or Jack Campbell?
I would say Campbell, because at least they got a cup with Binnington. It wasn't under that contract, but at least Binnington got them a cup.
No, you can't factor in that cup then because it's not under that contract. So
that's true.
You can't. So I would
still say Campbell probably.
I'm gonna go wash there. And I sometimes lean towards Binnington because his childish little tantrums, his crybaby bullshit, frustrates the hell out of not only his opponents but his teammates too. So
yeah, that's true. Just a headache to deal with, but we'll move on. After an embarrassing loss, like I said, that we hear about nonstop, to the Chicago Blackhawks this past season, the Pittsburgh Penguins failed to qualify for the postseason. Sidney Crosby will play in over 1.5 postseasons for the rest of his career. Mark.
I'm going to go with, you know what? Because I said 1.5. I totally messed this up.
Well,
I got to go shot. I got to go shot because you can't go beer because you can't play in 1.5 postseasons. But I got to go shot on this because that core is aging. I don't think Kyle Dubas is going to have the answers. This is not the up-and-coming team he got with Toronto. This is an aging team with a lot of rough contracts. You're going to have to figure out who you want to move and who you want to make a core of the team. I don't see that being Brian Rust or Jake Gensel, even though they had turned in good seasons. Sidney Crosby's still a great player. It's just how much does Malkin really have his heart into this, and how much can Chris Letang really continue?
Yeah, I'm going to go next because this is an opportunity for me to absolutely shit on Pittsburgh. I'm going Shot, and I'm tired of hearing the rumors of them getting Erik Karlsson. What world are they getting Erik Karlsson? And, okay, they get Erik Karlsson. Chris Letang's going to move down to the second pair. Like, he's going to be happy with that. They're going to have to give up the sun and the moon to get him. First of all, they have little to no prospects. And don't give me Yeager. I don't think they're going to move Yeager right after they drafted him. So that leaves you with what? Sam Poulin as their top prospect or whatever his name is. And then they'd have to attach assets to Petrie, attach assets to Granlund to get rid of him. They're not getting Karlsson, and their roster is old, not good enough, and their goaltending is garbage. Tristan Jarry is not going to help them at all. That's all I have to say with that.
I was just going to say, they are $2.3 million over the cap right now as we speak.
That's him.
3 NHL level goaltenders under contract that I believe are all on one-way deals. Between Jari, who they scapegoated for the last 3 seasons now, and
then they gave him a 5-year deal.
And then they gave him 5 times 5 and change. Like, what are you doing? Stupid, just absolutely stupid move by Dubas. And then you have Mikael Granlund, and what are you doing with him? You just gave Rickard Rakell a deal about a year ago, so you're going to move Rickard Rakell? I mean, I think he would get more than Granlund, but you're going to move him and you're going to compromise your depth on the wings. I know they brought in, Riley Smith. I get it. I like that. I like the player. I don't know if I necessarily like bringing in like that type of salary while you have all these cap problems to deal with, because he has 2 years left at $5 million. But you still have Jeff Carter. You got to get rid of Jeff Carter. How are you fitting in Erik Karlsson? Who exactly is going back the other way? And why is San Jose taking back a garbage contract to deal to move Erik Karlsson? To me, I don't get it. I don't get how they do it. I could see them missing the playoffs this year. I could see them getting close again and missing it. But to me, I don't see how this team is better than last year's team.
Yeah, I agree. So you're going to say Shot or Beer on that?
I'm going to say Beer. They could free up space the next year and then, make the right moves. Dubas is not completely stupid. He does make some idiotic moves, and definitely Jari's one of them. But he could maybe do something the following year, especially with the cap going up. So I'm not going to rule anything out with them.
See, Jets.
Taking a shot at Yeager on this one, and the only way that I go higher with a Beer around is if Crosby ever leaves the Penguins. Not only are the Penguins worse this year with losing Jason Zucker to Arizona, they also lost the second best player in the entire league, Josh Archibald, to Tampa Bay. So Archibald's gone. Heartbreak in Pittsburgh. I don't know what I mean. No wonder Lemieux sold the team. Zucker's gone. The East is getting better. I mean, you look at like who Pittsburgh has to compete against. Forget getting a divisional spot. You're talking about a wild card spot. Ottawa's still getting better, even though they lose to Brinkett. They're still young and getting better. Toronto's still there. I think Washington might be better than Pittsburgh, but it's hard to say. The Islanders are the Islanders. Columbus is getting better. Like I don't know. Detroit, Buffalo. Like I can't. If you're gonna insert a team into the playoffs in a conference, if you just do the top 8 in the conference, I can definitely think of 8, 9, maybe even 10 teams that I have more faith in right now in the East than the Pittsburgh Penguins, just because they're getting older. The guys they have are already constantly hurt. I mean, the guy, like we just said, the guy that was a scapegoat for the reason they've sucked for the past year just got a 5-year, multi-million-dollar extension. So I just don't see a world or a realm where it is possible for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get Sidney Crosby into 1.5 more playoffs. But then again, it's Sidney Crosby, so I maybe you don't doubt him, but just if it happens, it's not going to be with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that I agree with. That's something that I was going to actually mention that I completely forgot about when I was reading the question at
I
first.
can't see them dealing him. I can't.
Yeah, I
It would be
find it hard to
impossible to.
imagine
Or
them
even
moving
him
him.
asking his way out.
Yeah, that's the only problem, especially because of the fact that he has the cups. But at the same time, did we imagine even a couple years ago Patrick Kane being moved out of Chicago ever?
Yeah,
So-
because they needed to rebuild. So yeah, that was something that I think we could have seen coming. But you know what it is? Crosby, to me, is you could argue he's the second best player in franchise history behind Mario Lemieux, and you would argue that because he was a bigger face to the franchise, bigger ambassador than Jaromir Jagr was in those years that Lemieux had retired between 97 and 2000 when he came back. Like Crosby's been the face for probably about 15 years now. It's 15, 16 years now he's been the face. And now you're just going to go and deal that guy away while
Sure.
he's still very productive. It's going to be a hard sell. And not only that, but it's going to be tough to make a deal for a 35, 36-year-old player who's going to go into his twilight years. Because although he's still going to be an incredible player, it's going to be hard to gauge the drop-off with him.
Another thing we didn't talk about, too, is how many concussions away potentially is he from potentially being done for his career, too?
How many injuries is of getting Malkin from being away from being done in his career? Because he's another one always hurt every year.
I'll just
Yeah.
summarize it like this, guys. Just can you be the GM that says the words, "I traded Sidney Crosby"?
Nope. And that's why I don't see it.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll move on to the last question of Mark's, and then we'll move on to my two questions. But I feel like this is a popular bar talk topic, this last one, or maybe it's just because it's talked about a lot. But Austin Matthews is set to become a free agent after this upcoming season. Austin Matthews will play in Toronto in 2024-2025 Sea Jets.
This has to be my last one, unfortunately, because I have a beer league game I got to go lose here in 30 minutes. Austin Matthews will I think he'll play in Toronto in 2025, and when he does it, it's going to be a really weird coming back party, him wearing a Rangers jersey. All right, so this is an interesting one, only because I don't. Oh gosh, I don't know. I really don't know, because I think if any team is going to go head over heels and overpay to keep their superstar, it's going to be Toronto. And I do think they are going to overpay him on a short-term deal, and he'll leave on the next one. As much as I really do want to believe he will leave, this is a really tough one. Give me a beer on this one. I don't, only because I'm super unsure if someone else is going to somehow find money to really overpay him to get him away from Toronto. I don't really think he wants to be in Toronto anymore, but money talks. And if Toronto finds a way to offer him, let's play pretend, between $18 and $20 million a year, I mean, that's 18 to 20 million reasons that he should just stay in Toronto and suck it up for a few more years.
Phil.
You know what? I was gonna say beer. I think I'm gonna say shot. And the reason for that being is that there's such hardball going on right now with Nylander, and that's such a complicated situation. And I don't think either of these guys are going to want to budge on what they think they deserve to be paid. And we've heard the quotes from Nylander and the agent about he feels that he's a $10 million player and so on. I think Matthews is going to look to break McDavid's AAV. I think he's going to look to be the highest paid player in the league in terms of AAV. And I think that Toronto may not be able to do that. I think they may have to think about, the overall depth of the team and getting other pieces in and they may have to change things up, especially if they lose this year again. They don't make it to the second round, or if they don't make it past the second round, things may have to change there. So I think the money may have to be allocated elsewhere.
Mark.
Oh, this is a tough one. And I'm going to go beer. Because I think Phil is right about that. They have to figure it out what it's going to be, but they're going to have to figure out sooner than later. You can't wait till the playoffs. Can't wait for the playoffs with that, because then you can just walk. First off, nice job by Kyle Dubas, the smartest GM ever to GM ever. And here's another thing. Bradshaw Living is the third GM over Austin Matthews, I should say. So he's not really wedded to Austin Matthews. That being said, Austin Matthews is one of the top 5 players in the sport. So you're going to have to make sure you make that concession and try to build around him. I think the problem is you got other guys you have to move. I think William Nylander is going to be the casualty, and I think it's going to be him. I think he's going to get moved somewhere. I don't know where. He'll be probably starting the season somewhere else. And I think Matthews likely stays, but if he doesn't like what he sees, they're going to ask him to be vocal about it. He might not be there in October at this rate.
Yeah, I'm going to say beer as well. I just question what he's going to prioritize more on this next deal, because I feel like a team's going to give him the money regardless. Does he feel he could win in Toronto, or does he want to go somewhere else where he feels he might have a better chance of winning? That's my main question with that, because I think it's known he's going to take a short-term deal, because the cap's expected to go up an absurd amount within the next 2 to 3 years. So to me, I really wonder if he's going to stick it out for those 2 or 3 years, or if he's going to try to go somewhere to win and then get the big bucks after that. But we'll go to my questions, a little fun ones. I know Mark likes to do self alley-oops every once in a while, so I thought I would take a stab at it.
Before you go, I just wanted to say I'll smell you guys later. We'll do it again sometime. And
Yeah.
hopefully I can stand up straight with all these shots and rounds. Later, boys.
Later.
So, yeah. But Mark should call Big Lou right now, Phil.
Round. Oh man, this is great. Oh, if only Anthony was here. This is an absolute layup. Just have Mark just get like murdered on friggin' a live stream by Big Lou. Have him have someone
That would
get out an
That would
assassin.
definitely get some good ratings for us. It would probably be like that Daffy Duck thing where he blows himself up, and they're like, "Hey, Daffy, the audience loves it." Problem is, I can only do it once.
Mark, what's your answer on this one?
Oh, I'm taking a shot on this one. I would rather drink turpentine than to go through that phone call again. I am not a good cold call person to begin with.
I mean, yeah, this one's a layup. I think you should find out what's going on with those DeBrusque rumors with Pajot. I think you should make him a call for that. Yeah, I don't believe it, but you should find out if there's any truth to that. You should find out what's going on there and find out what Lou's thinking. But I think this last question's even better for you, Mark.
Okay.
Mark Williams has started scoring in the dating life at the expense of scoring on the ice. Mark Williams will be engaged before scoring his next beer league point. Phil.
Oh,
Actually, no, I'll start this one. This one's a layup. I think there's a possibility, and I think there's a lot into this. I think that Mark is going to be engaged before scoring his next beer league point. He talks about how he struggles all the time. I think it's gonna.
Corey, it's like you have to pull up that comment from Maria.
Oh, she's in here?
Yeah. Oh god.
Oh boy.
Round. I'm definitely going round.
Layup?
It's not because they're getting engaged anytime soon.
Well, sadly, last season I only played 3 games. I notched an assist, and the year before, or the season before, not the year before, I think I had 2 goals and 5 assists. It wasn't great, or maybe it might even be worse. Yeah, I'm in a little bit of a rut, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I might be engaged.
The comment was from Mark.
Hey, you know what? When you got a pretty girl like that and you chose wisely, you might have to lock that down.
Oh my god!
Can't have like the Austin Matthews situation
To
where
be fair,
she's wondering whether or not. Yeah, to be fair, where she's wondering whether or not the contract is going to get signed. No, you signed that deal. You lock that up.
So,
Good
Mark,
job, Mark.
your answer is around.
Yeah, I'll go with a round. Yeah, right.
Wow.
Why not?
Oh man!
Also, because I don't have another game till at least October. Gives me more time.
So it might be happening soon. If he's saying October, who knows? Or it's just because he has no confidence on the ice. Who knows? But to me, that one was a layup. I wanted to try the self alley-oop thing like you do, Mark, every once in a while.
Mark is definitely like Capo Caco, not feeling the confidence in the shot.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, the worst part is when you have a good game skating wise, and then just you can't score. That just happened in our playoff game last week. I think it was.
And that is it for Bar Talk. Unless anyone has, unless Phil comes up with a topic, if he has anything creative too. I know if Anthony was here, he'd have a creative topic for Mark too.
He definitely would.
Oh, Anthony's
probably play a prank on Mark if anything.
His pranks have been great lately.
I forgot what his question was when he was asking something about you being engaged too in Bar Talk. I know he did that too. I took a page out of his book on that one.
Yeah, that's an Anthony thing, man.
And who'd have thought about a year ago I was talking about how terrible my love life was. So
Mark is doing something right.
Yeah, well, I credit her for all that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Mark is doing more right than I am right now, so I'll give Mark that. I crap on Mark at any chance I get, but I do have to give him credit here. So we will give Mark credit. He is a good sport too. So
that's it. We will give him credit for being a good sport.
It's only me. That's all it is.
You might have to.
That's because your gaffes are legendary. Like that one episode, the first time Maria told you to get it together, that one episode, you literally kept messing up. It was one mess up after another, after another, after another. Like you could not stop tripping over your own feet. It was hilarious.
When I had we were doing the midseason awards and I had it all prepped. I did the lead into it, and my midseason MVP was going to be Jonathan Huberdeau, and I called him Justin. I don't think there's anything more legendary than that.
Yeah, that's the most iconic one.
That's, I think, where all that really like started too.
Yeah,
it definitely is.
Justin
Yeah,
Huberdeau.
And now it's the Big Apple Hockey Attack ad for whenever November rolls around.
Yeah,
it's like those political things.
So it's funny. It just that's part of why I like our show. I like the way that our show is set up. It's just because we're just a bunch of idiots just talking hockey and having fun with it. Like that's really what it comes down to. We're not TSN. We're not spitting chicklets. We're not any of these other podcasts. It's just us. Just I'd say three things: fun, interactive, and informative. Should say four, authentic too. It's what we aim to be, is those four things, and then anything we can give you otherwise is bonus material. So usually I catch a lot of those and I'm almost like, what is he talking about? Like and I just like huh? And sometimes I'll make those faces and I forget that I'm like live and I'm making these faces. I was like, what is he saying? Like, I don't mean to like just absolutely shit on him with those faces, but
Yeah,
it's just like I can't help myself sometimes.
Especially with the obvious layups, you just make the most funny faces.
Oh, that I do on purpose.
Oh
That I
no, the
do
other
on purpose. That's where I'm like, come on, man. Like
we're planning on an honest press conference tomorrow. And one of the jokes we started with the honest press conferences was that everybody hates my questions. So,
yeah.
I think you gotta do one as since you call Jonathan Huberto Justin. I think you gotta be Mr. Game 7. I think you gotta be Justin Williams instead of Mark Williams and do an honest press conference that way.
oh boy.
Do a throwback.
Oh God.
I mean,
What
that
were
wouldn't
you
be a
even
bad
talking
one.
about with him though?
Yeah, that's the only problem.
That would be like the one thing that I'd be like, I don't even know what material we could use for that. That would be interesting though. If something there was some way to get them. Oh yeah, and even this one here from Dave. Even Statboy Steven and Ward even mentioned Justin Hubert. Oh God, it's great.
We do the same here. Outside of our Winnipeg jokes, we take jabs at Winnipeg here all the time.
Why do you take jabs at Winnipeg?
Because we just make jokes about Pierre-Luc Dubois since he was asking to be traded for God only knows how long. So we just make like Winnipeg jokes. It all started because I was like, Pierre-Luc Dubois is pissed that the Jets won a game. He's going to whack at Connor Hellebuck's leg. So now we just dunk on Winnipeg nonstop.
When I always think of Winnipeg, I always think of friggin' that wrestling fan. I think it was in WWE who was telling Chris Jericho to go back to Toronto. He's like, I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot.
I always think about there was this mother and daughter that I met in Toronto, not Toronto, Vancouver, the other side of the country, and we were on a beer tour, and they go like, "Oh yeah, we're from Winnipeg," and their voices went down. My friend Jay goes, well, "Why'd your voices go down on that?" And I just said, "Well, here's the reason why. It's July, it's 6:00, and it's 49 degrees." So. But no, I look forward to eventually going to go see Winnipeg when we do the Marks on the Road to go to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I want to get out and go visit all the arenas that I can visit. I've done Capital One in DC years ago when it was still the Verizon Center. I've done TD Garden in Boston. Obviously, with this guy up there to the right, I got Las Vegas last year, T-Mobile Arena. That was fun, but not for an NHL game. For an not an NHL regular game, an All-Star game.
I'm gonna have to go back for a Vegas game.
Yeah,
and I've been there already twice. Once for a Vegas game, once for Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I need to start getting the more arenas. I went to the only one outside of MSG and UBS that I've been to is KeyBank in Buffalo, which I'm going to again probably for opening night this year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I want to make the trip up there for that, just because it's not too bad.
What you're gonna have to do is figure out what wing places you feel like going to. We went to Anchor Bar. That's where you had the original Buffalo wing, and then you also had Duff's, which was pretty good. Make sure you stay on I think it's the arena end of town, because there's where we stayed wasn't a good area.
Yeah, I've been around the arena area, and it was yeah, there was parts that weren't that great.
Yeah, Buffalo can be sketch in certain parts. I have a friend that lives up there, so he was telling me that. But yeah, I mean, I've also done Prudential Center. I've done the Rock, but I've actually not done it for a hockey game. I've actually done it for a wrestling show a couple of times, and for AEW, and then for, funny enough, Carmelo Anthony's first game as a Knick against the Nets. I was at that game, and a fight broke out right in our section, and it was just ridiculous. This dude started fighting with this other guy, and girl got involved, and girl threw a drink, and the guy threw the drink back at the girl, and it was just fucking madness. It's like, oh God. Yeah, and AHL, I've done Hartford. I've gone to a Wolf. Well, it was a Whale game. Actually, no, I went to a Wolfpack game. I went to Sean Avery's only game with the Wolfpack. Funny enough, he came back in 2008, 2009. He played one game with Hartford, and funny enough, it was against the Manitoba Moose. And Mike Keane, former Ranger, was playing in that game. And Mike Keane, as Ranger fans probably remember him most for, accidentally colliding with Pat LaFontaine in a practice and ending Pat LaFontaine.
Oh,
Ugh.
So yeah,
that's true.
yeah. So Mike Keane does not have fond memories amongst Ranger fans, and then gets traded to Dallas and goes and wins a Stanley Cup. Then so
Yeah, that's something I gotta do though. I gotta go to a Hartford game. I'm excited to go to the Stadium Series this year and get to go to an outdoor game since I didn't get the chance when it was at Citi Field or Yankee Stadium.
yeah, I gotta get going though because
Yeah, I gotta get going. I gotta go get dinner.
yeah,
for,
same. I'm going to the gym in a bit too. So
I gotta
All
get
right.
back on my workout schedule again. I should have went this afternoon, but instead it rained. So once it started raining, I went, "Oh, let's play Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Why not?" It just,
you still haven't beaten it yet.
I still haven't beat it. I'm probably not gonna beat it till like September. I'm doing all the
You're a noob.
ancillary stuff.
You're a noob.
Well, I gotta get all the shrines first. Phil, come on. I think I beat my first
I did all
Blue
that
hands
25
on
days.
ground.
He also has to set up the lobs for you for tomorrow's episode for layup talk.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I got a golf outing I gotta do that for as well.
We should probably have like Chris Paul, the Blake Griffin, friggin' Lob City, friggin' setups for friggin' layup talk.
All right.
All right.
But we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Mark and Phil, for coming on. Needed to do this collab. Go check them out for their show tomorrow. They do it every single Wednesday at around 6 o'clock also, right? Or
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, so 6 o'clock tomorrow. Be sure to tune in for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for the latest episode of the Rangers Talk podcast. Not sure how much we're going to do for the remainder of the summer. We're going to have to get creative here. We're going to do the naming random Rangers stream at some point, so be on the lookout for that. But thank you guys for tuning in
on that one because that one sounds really fun.
Oh, yeah, that one. It's going to be like a Don't Break the Chain with random Rangers. We're going to get, we'll have to get you, Steven. We're going to have to get a bunch of people on for that one.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like I would love to do like a an open bar, like the Critical Drinker sort of thing, or Nerdrotic, whatever they do, an open bar style. So that would be nice. And,
yeah. And yeah, we
yeah.
could do this for streams. I've been doing this on C Jets' channel a lot lately.
Yeah, we just started doing that. Yeah,
we're going to be doing that on ours tomorrow too. So,
which again, today I had a Lightning LA player they gave us, and I said LeCavalier again instead of saying Dan Cloutier, which would have been.
I should have said Dan Cloutier for that one too. I went LeCavalier.
Yeah,
but I got a good one for Tampa Bay and Buffalo.
Oh, who do you got?
Matt Barnaby, 1%.
What was I'm missing one. So we're trying to sign off right now. The Darren Pupa, was he both?
Yes, Darren Pupa was both too.
My best get for today was for the Ottawa Washington one. I got Paul Carey for that one.
Oh wow, that's a good one.
My best get is Troy Loney for the Islanders and the Rangers. No one remembers him, except for that he's an answer to a trivia question, which is the first player to play for both.
My best guess so far of anyone that I've done, or my best answer, was a LA Tampa Bay Lightning one. It was Steve Casper, 0.1%.
My best is always on the MLB ones because I could just name the most obscure Mets players ever. When the Mets are on the grid, forget about it. I get the most obscure players. I've played like one game for them.
Yeah, I could do that with the Rangers. That when it comes to Rangers stuff like that, I could.
Yeah, that too. The original 6 one was very easy the other day. But we'll wrap up the episode here for this time. Leave a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you guys are new, and we will see you guys in the next one.